Hello and welcome to today's edition of Cafe Diversity. I'll be your host, Sarah Nada. As always, today's show is brought to you by Westman Immigrant Services and WCG-TV. Today on my show, I have a really special guest. I've got Blake Hamilton from the Marquis Project. Hello.
Hello.
Thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Oh. What can you tell us about the Marquis Project? Some people may or may not have heard of it before, so can you give us a little bit of history?
Right, so the Marquis Project's been has been in existence and in Brandon for 36 years.
Oh, wow.
or more than 35, just about 36 years, and has been working to connect Manitobans, southwestern Manitobans in particular, with the developing world. And so what it does is kind of two tracks. It works on education and creating connections for southwestern Manitoba to the developing world, but also works in developing countries on projects that have to do with agriculture, business, development, and things like access to fresh water, efficient use of fuels and cooking and that kind of thing. So they have presently got a project running in Tanzania, Africa, that works in some small communities and works with a collective of farmers to help improve conditions there and to develop agricultural practices and domestic practices that are more efficient and allow people to move forward in terms of being able to send their children to school and live with with a better or a higher standard of living and that kind of a thing. So cool. I'm here in Brandon doing the education side of it, and I get the honor of going around to schools in southwestern Manitoba and speaking to students from kindergarten up to university students about topics that have to do with international development, human rights, social justice, global citizenship, and that kind of thing. So.
Okay. So you're the education program coordinator then for Marquis Project. How long have you been doing this for?
Since October.
Okay, so
yeah, it's a new position for me. So.
Okay. Now, did you take over the position for someone else, or are you the first one to do this?
No, it's been going on for some time now, for several years, and I just managed to get the position, get in there this year, and it's been a great honor to be able to represent Marquis Project and the work that Marquis does, and to be able to do something that I'm passionate about, which is help to expand the awareness and understanding in young people about these global topics that we can maybe be quite detached from and not really realize, that they're happening, and B, how it affects us and how we can affect the situations in other parts of the world. So.
Yeah, we're pretty lucky here in Canada, right? We're in our nice, sheltered, happy little corner of the world, and sometimes it's hard to know, hey, what's going on?
Yeah, one of the things that we do that I speak on is the concept of just fortune and luck, and how we're very lucky to live in Canada, and that compared to just about everywhere else in the world, we're kind of at the top in terms of our standard of living and what we the comforts and necessities that we're able to have in our lives. So that's something that it takes some. It takes some depicting to kind of paint the picture and show children and students, to appreciate that.
Yeah, no, very, very true. When we talk about the Marquis Project as a whole, now you've only been there since October, so maybe you won't be able to answer this question, but do you know how the Marquis Project got started?
I'm not, there's some people that you could talk to that are still on the board of the Marquis Project that have been involved since the very beginning in 1979, I believe. So what started was a feeling amongst globally minded individuals in Brandon and activists that there was a big gap between what people in southwestern Manitoba knew about the world and what was actually really going on in the world and how other people were living.
Okay.
And so Marquis Project was formed at that time to bridge that gap. And one of the big parts of the Marquis Project for decades was the Worldly Goods store, which was down on Rosser Avenue in between 10th Street and 9th Street up until about 6 years ago.
Okay.
And so it offered fairly traded worldly goods that the monies from which went directly to the producers and helped to create some economic stability in the places where those arts and crafts or what have you were being produced. About 6 years ago, the board decided to focus on education and on the international development side, and having to run a shop downtown was a very big thing to have to deal with and consider. And so there still is a place to access and to purchase worldly goods, and that's right across the street where 10,000 Villages has been for quite a long time too. And so the Mennonite Central Committee's 10,000 Villages and Marquis Project collaborate and work together in that too. So so that's to go back to your question, how it was formed and why was to link South Manitobans to the developing world, and to make tangible links that people could actually get involved with things and contribute in meaningful ways.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's one thing for myself personally. It's one thing to see something on television, right? But I can forget about it. The TV's off. I don't need to worry about it anymore. So I think this is a really awesome idea, and I like the fact that you're working with the youth. I have 2 sons myself, and hoping they'll learn more about the rest of the world. So I look forward to when they get to come hear you speak at their school.
Well,
I'm excited.
I'll try to make sure that I embarrass them.
Yes,
I know
perfect.
your mom.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I'm looking for.
So yeah, and I think too, living in Brandon, Brandon has changed obviously a lot since 1979.
Oh, yes.
And we're in, we live in a city that's got a very, strong international presence. There's people from all around the world here, and that is to me a tremendous gift and something that I'm really grateful for. It allows us as citizens of Brandon to have direct connections to other parts of the world, and to learn about other parts of the world, not from seeing something on the news or reading about something on the internet, but by actually having real conversations with people. So, I mean, I feel like the general awareness of the average Brandonite and southwestern Manitoban too, because it's not just Brandon that there's been a large increase in immigrant populations, but I think it really has done wonders for the average level of awareness and appreciation for life in other parts of the country, and that makes my work more meaningful in a way, because we can tie things into real life right here, right now, today in the classroom kind of situations, and we can talk about things not just as people from Brandon, 3rd or 4th generation immigrants to Brandon, which is the majority most of the time in terms of the composition of a class. But we can talk about it as a mixture of people, some of whom are 1st generation immigrants, and not to leave the First Nations out of it too, to have that First Nations voice, the voice of people that have grown up here as 3rd or 4th generation immigrants, and then having the voice of the 1st generation immigrants, all to have these discussions about international development. It really makes the learning so much more real and vital and meaningful. So
So what do you do? Do you visit schools and give presentations? Do you like get involved with like an actual classroom hands-on kind of a thing? Like what do you do for your job on a daily basis?
Right, so my job is to support Manitoba Education's curriculum.
Okay.
So that's where our funding comes through, is through Manitoba Education for my position.
Okay.
And so then the Marquis side of it is to promote awareness and education around international development, and like I said, social justice, human rights, and global citizenship. So, when I'm preparing presentations for a class or what have you, I'm keeping both of those things in mind. So looking at the curriculum of that particular grade level,
right,
and looking at what I can focus on to help develop that learning around that curriculum point, and then also with the Marquis's mandate in mind, which is the international development side of it. So basically, I send emails out and connect with teachers and principals and whatnot, and I have a list of presentations that I've put together that people can kind of choose from. It's almost like ordering a pizza. So you have there's the Greek and there's the Mediterranean and whatnot, and
the olives.
And you can change toppings, and I don't charge people for changing toppings. So it's kind of like ordering a pizza, and we figure it out, and then I show up and provide the presentation. Of course, it's free to the teacher, so
really
that's
nice.
something that generally is quite appreciated, because schools have very small budgets sometimes,
yes,
and to have something that can be offered for free is usually quite people are quite happy about. And then my jurisdiction is southwestern Manitoba, so so I can travel and go to schools that otherwise maybe are kind of too far away from a center to get too much. Too many people coming and visiting and stuff like that. So it's nice that way as well. So, but yeah, so I work with the teachers, and I sometimes produce some new programs, just depending on what the teacher's covering or if they have a suggestion. And I just try to help support that kind of education, and looking forward to working on some projects that might not reach kind of a complete state this year, but some that are things that I can kind of stick with and hopefully see through to fruition over the course of a few years potentially in Brandon. Like one of the things that I've been talking to a teacher about is creating like a global learning garden, where it's basically taking the community garden setup, but then having self-guided signage that would actually, demonstrate gardening techniques, or different food crops that are grown in different parts of the world.
Oh, okay.
And would be able to connect people through a hands-on medium to other parts of the world, and to the different kinds of issues and concerns that are arisen in different areas. And for instance, on that topic, like 80% of the world's food producers are living under the poverty line. And so, talking about why that is and stuff like that. And kids tend to be very hands-on and very interested in taking part in things. So certainly developing programs and games and activities that involve that kind of experiential learning, and that problem solving, and taking a learning point from here and thinking about something here and trying to figure out how to bridge those two kind of those two learning points together. And it's very, very rewarding and quite a lot of fun. So
it sounds like it. Now, you've been talking a little bit about global education. So if you were to define global education and what it is and what it means, what would you say?
Well, we focus mostly on developing countries.
Okay.
So with regards to that, I think what the news feed that we're exposed to, I mean, it's generally on. So there's only so much that can be fit into the hourly news.
Right. And
also, depending on the news source, you might hear one side of the story or what have you. So. One thing that we focus on is, on the stories that maybe aren't told, and looking at things that maybe aren't getting in the limelight, that aren't getting as much attention, and and there's human rights atrocities going on in the world that we never even hear about.
Right.
Maybe they don't make it out of the country, for one thing, in terms of like media suppression and stuff like that.
That's very true.
And then they just don't maybe make the news, make the story. So we talk about, we try to get kids, I guess one of the things that's a real priority is having kids realize, or students realize, like how most of the world lives.
Right.
Which is like, kind of blows your mind when you realize like how, for instance, almost half of the world's population, a third of the world's population lives on less than $2 a day.
Wow.
Yeah,
really?
And I mean, when you start to talk about that and what that means, and like how many, there's certainly lots that's going on in the world that one can get a little winded by and even depressed by, and so keeping that in mind, we talk about how, for instance, lots of children die every day, and why that is. How does somebody die from diarrhea? And we talk about stuff like water supply and the issues surrounding fresh water, and how here in the West we can spend quite frivolously, and such a fraction of what we spend on frivolous things could potentially is all that would be needed to provide, say, clean drinking water to like whole countries of people that are living and dying because of those kinds of poor conditions and stuff. So like I said, it can be quite depressing, and so my intention is definitely not to leave kids feeling like the world is this hopeless place, but rather to inspire them to not only think about those other places and how people are living elsewhere, and to develop compassion and develop kinship and develop that sense of global citizenship, that despite these imaginary lines, well, sometimes they're actual physical lines because they're like fences that divide countries and whatnot. But rather than thinking of ourselves nationally, thinking of ourselves as international citizens and caring for each other, like Doctors Without Borders. And it doesn't matter where somebody lives. If there's somebody that's having a hard time, we should care about that person, and excuse me. So bringing that kind of that awareness into it, how can we help? There's some things that we talk about that we can do in our community that directly helps other places. So we talk about fair trade, for instance, and how when you buy fair trade, more of that money goes towards the community, to the collective of farmers that produce that crop, how it's regulated by a third party, so that that your money is actually going to where it says it's going. There's a tracking number on every product that can be traced through the supply chain directly to the grower. So we really break down some of these concepts about how we can be doing things like voting with our dollar, which is a concept where when you spend money, you're actually basically saying to a company, I want to support you. And whether that's a conscious decision or an unconscious decision, and trying to make it more of a conscious choice. So we talk about that, and then we also talk about how we can be better people to each other in the classroom, in our schools, in our families, in our neighborhoods, and how a lot of the problems that the world is facing are just basic kindergarten level values that are on like a national level, like problems where with corruption, cheating, lying, racism, not sharing. These are all very basic, really. Generally, and I don't want to oversimplify, because it's certainly I don't pretend to know the full story about a lot of these situations, and I'm very aware that there is very, very complicated situations out there. But so we do try to bring it in and say, like, we talk about, for instance, slavery and like the history of slavery, and then what, like, present day slavery and family debts and people working family debts and basically being slaves, kids that can't go to school because they have to help work off family debts and this kind of a thing. And so we talk about, how discrimination plays a part in that, and how other things that we can address in the classroom, and make sure that as a community, as a group of citizens of a town or a province or a country, we can prevent those sorts of things from happening. By being inclusive, by accepting each other, by having respect, compassion, and trying to help each other out, and so it's very very rewarding work, and certainly pretty, like, kids get it, if they get the opportunity to think about these things and mull them over. The kids are generally, like, they understand those concepts. So
it always makes me wonder, because I remember when I was a teenager learning about some things like this, and it could have just been the way that it was presented to me. They always seemed like such big issues, and I'm just this kid, so and what I'm going to do even matter at all? Right? So I like that you make it more personal, and that you show them all. And things.
On that, it's funny that you mentioned that, because I also like to, I show how as consumers, how as a population, we can make decisions, and if enough of us make those decisions and talk about those things, like, for instance, with fair trade, not only are we supporting these companies that are fair trade and promoting those programs and helping those farmers and whatnot in those communities, but we're also talking about it. It's actually a reason to discuss, well, what isn't fair trade then? Like, what is it to not be fair trade? What's the problem with that? How is this industrial, structure and food system and supply chain, what's wrong with it? And so we can start to actually break these things down and talk about things. But on a personal level, in terms of what can we do as individuals, there's some real shining examples right now that are recent, within the last few years, of individuals that have stepped forward and made incredible change just as a single person. And so Malala Yousafzai, the Pakistani girl. Pakistani? Now I'm having doubts. She's in Afghanistan.
I can't remember, to be honest, but I know the girl that you're speaking of. I'm on the spot. So Malala Yousafzai, who is outspoken youth for equal opportunity for women and girls to be educated, and was shot on a bus by the Taliban, and recovered and came back swinging, so to speak, and was awarded a Nobel Peace Prize, or co-awarded a Nobel Peace Prize a year ago for her work, and has made enormous positive waves as a single person. And she's only 14, I think
now she's, I think, 16 or 17 or something.
When this all started, she was only 14 years old.
Exactly. And so that kind of story also goes to show that one person can make a difference. And this isn't one person who's got all the privileges and safety and security of somebody like you or I. It's somebody that's lives in a repressed part of the world as a repressed part of the population, being women and being female. So I mean, we also want to inspire kids that you're not too young or too small or too alone as an individual to make big changes. But
that's good. I like that. I'm all excited for that now.
Yeah.
Where were you when I was in school?
I was also in school, I think.
All right. Well, it sounds like you do a lot of really amazing work, and I'm actually really excited for when my children actually get to participate in that, because they will get to teach me all these things that I don't know, right?
Yeah.
So it'll be quite entertaining.
Kids are good teachers that way.
They are, and we just have to shut up and listen to them, really. That's what has to happen sometimes. Just one last thing before we go. I understand you go and you speak to schools about this whole concept and everything like that, but are there ever any events, if you will, that the general public can attend to learn about this on their own, or how does that work?
Right. Well, there are, like, Marquis Project tends to try to line up with some of the international days.
Okay.
So, like the human rights, the International Day for Human Rights was back in, I think, February, or I don't even remember. I was there. I have no idea when it was. And so we do like Marie Soray, she's the coordinator of the Fair Trade Committee, and so she tries to make sure that there's representation of Marquis Project and fair trade and coffees, teas, hot chocolates, and like samplings of different fair trade fruits and chocolates and stuff like that at events like that.
Okay.
And in the past, Marquis Project has put on public events too, and that's something that. The position's kind of new for me, so I'm kind of taking baby steps. But I certainly see, the day where there are larger events for a lot of people to come to. For instance, guest speakers that are touring across the country on certain topics and stuff like that, or a new documentary or a movie that's out and that kind of a thing. But so I'm still trying to feel that out and see what's out there. I'm still making connections in the community with people like yourself who are involved in different ways that kind of bolster and develop the idea of global citizenship and international development and stuff like that. So but I'll definitely be keeping you in the loop.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. I look forward to it.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you very much for coming today. It was great to have you. I learned so much, and usually that doesn't happen in such a short period of time. I suppose I should clarify. I learned a lot, but this has been a short time, so thanks very much. It was really great to have you today.
Thank you.
All right.
Cheers.
All right, so that's been our show for today. Thank you very much for those of you who have tuned in and watched today. As always, today's show has been brought to you by Westman Immigrant Services and WCG TV. Thanks very much for watching, and have a good day.